I used to be able to do this real easy live by myself, like a flow, but now my mind, after I quit for 5 years of doing anything, I don't know, it never came back to me like it did. I mean, I'm not nearly as quick-witted as I was if you listen to, a lot of the shows I have on there that are 10 years old and longer. Yeah, or even, 7, 8 years ago, it's a whole different story. Whole other ballgame altogether. But the BlueRays are just a soul incarnation group. Some of them were, the real core group of them were born from probably about 62 to 76, with it stretching back into the mid-50s, and a very few couple rare cases, like right after the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bomb went off a couple years later in 47. Some came down here incarnated then. It started picking up about the mid-50s, and then 62 full-fledged, 76, and then on still until even into the early 80s a little bit. So it's kind of, like I said earlier, different people from different generations are BlueRays as well. It's just the stereotypical mold if you were teaching it in the class. How you would put it in an about way. BlueRays are very sensitive. They've kind of lived through a life where they have gotten to see an ascension go on, not body-wise, but mentally in a sense, from growing up without an internet till even like the last of the BlueRays like me. It was, it wasn't even available till a year after I was out of high school. And I'm talking, 28K dial-up, pay by the hour, getting kicked off a local server, couldn't do anything for at least another year or more where you could listen to really anything online at all. The Napster came around and stuff because it was too slow until you got up to 56K. Yeah, and even then, man, good luck. You better be audio only. And it took a couple more years for video, really, to the advent of cable. So it wasn't like it was first. And not a lot of common people had them for about a year or two in, or a couple years in, because it was, I know where I lived, it was by the hour, and you get kicked off and you were still charged for that hour off your server. And 28K dial-up, take a minute to load one little page to read. Now, they had something like it before then that I found out later. They had something like it going back to like 92, but it was this package you could get. There was 8 websites, period. They were all bulletin board websites, all 8 of them. That's it. Announcements, whatever, selling stuff, but just 8 of those. And 28K dial-up. So nobody who, only some weirdo, and it was spendy, really spendy too. I don't know, over $100 a month then for just that. So, not a lot of people, as you can imagine, had it nor knew about it. My cousin was really spoiled. He was really spoiled. He had, in the mid-1980s, this buddy of his and another cousin of his. Well, he could only play one of them at a time, but they each had modems at their house, so they could play their video. Somehow they were able to, with a phone line, play their video games just against each other. Pretty high-tech stuff in the mid-80s. Not many people had it. But so the BlueRays lived through a world where their whole world was in their world. That was it. Somebody moved from your school, his friend left the job, went on. You never know if you were ever going to hear from them again. Never, because you couldn't look them up on Facebook. You didn't know where they went and where they might have went after that. Or a friend you became close with in junior high, and then maybe the dad was in the military and they moved. Hell, man, you'd have to really go to great lengths to look them up later on. But now there's Facebook. You don't have that problem as much. Some people completely drop out of society or whatever, sure, but the majority don't. And then I found with the few that I thought had, eventually they pop around. So we lived where it was like that. There was nothing. And I ran into these 2 kids the other night, and I've got the tape. I taped it 1 minute. There was a big wrestling tournament in town. These high school kids were at the store. I was there, and I asked these 2 kids if I could ask them about 3 questions for my podcast. It was about ETs, whether they believed in them, whether human life came from them, and really cool kids, and they brilliant, answered everything. I was hoping the way that they, better than I could have ever dreamed. But the one non-ET question I asked them at first was, what do you guys have lived with the internet your whole life. What do you think it would be like to live in a society like without it? Like, say a friend leaves and you may never get to hear from them again or know where they went. That was it. Because I was telling them that was how it was when I was in school. And the one kid was was like, innocently, he's like, well, probably a better world. Yeah, I think it would be better. I don't know if he was just trying to say that to be cool and respectful, and I just, laughed and said, okay. But I'm thinking to myself, yeah, kid, sure. You can't put the rabbit back in the hat. If you've grown up with something like that, man, you're going to get bored eventually. If it's been a big part of your life and then it was no longer there. Maybe if he had never known about it, period, but, that's not the case. But I doubt seriously he would like it taken away from him. Text messaging, the convenience of that. No, fuck that. Not even I would. But it was a different world for BlueRay, so we watched this morphosis into where all of a sudden, instead of just meeting people around your town or your community, having to be a pen pal with somebody, you could meet people all over the goddamn world, which it's enabled me to do. I would have never dreamed to hallucinate, to fathom anything like that before the internet was around, Not even. I couldn't conceive of it. I couldn't even. In fact, I'll tell you, I've talked about this on air, and this is embarrassing. I graduated in 1994 from high school. My dad had a magazine sitting out in the den, which he had like Popular Mechanics, Popular Scientists, Popular this, that, all that shit. Science News magazine. He had them all. So there was this Popular Mechanics or Popular Science magazine out there, and it had a computer on the front of it. It had all this shit shooting out the computer, like, advertisements for different stores, fast food places, different corporations, everything you could imagine coming out of there. You got Nike, Bayer, Tylenol, Coca-Cola, Gatorade, whatever the hell, McDonald's, right? Okay, so, and it said coming, Super Information Highway, and I'm like, what the fuck are they talking about? So I looked at that magazine cover all summer long, off and on, and it got me. I even tried to read the article, couldn't understand it. What the hell are they talking about, the Super Information Highway coming? Well, about to start the next year, that it was there, and, it was open for people that had computers with a modem. They could, get a local server and get online. But I had no clue. I had no idea what it was at all. It was really bizarre. I had computers for a year in high school. Did okay, but we had partners, and I had a group both semesters, a girl named Keisha, who was my partner. She did all the goddamn homework. That must be why she got the A and I got the B. Well, I'm not complaining, you know what I mean? But like our semester project was something like formatting the discs, and these were before the 3.5 hard ones. These were floppies. And so I know with a 3.5 even, it was like 3 clicks to format a goddamn disc. That's it. And I think that was, I don't know how much harder it was with the floppy. She did all the work. But, that was a semester project then. It was basically click, drag, click acting like you're sit there and just act like you're clicking and dragging, and that's all you had to do. And the teacher was really cool. My parents had him, or my mom and uncle had this guy. I had him before too. And, he didn't care. He was just like, whatever, and that's it. It was 45 minutes of just, typing, how are you doing today, or some shit, and that was the class. And, click, drag, click, drag, click, drag. That's it. So I had no idea. Now people had computers then, but they were people that were really into, put it this way, if you had a computer in the 1980s, it was because you were into them. You were into the thought of them, what little they could do. They were very limited by today's standards of what they could do. Bill Gates thought that a computer would never need any more than 125K. That's not even a tenth of one. That's a little over a tenth of 1 megabyte, which is 1,000th of a gigabyte, which is 1,000th of a terabyte, and so on. Yeah, and look how quickly shit runs out of space now. But it wasn't there. It was weird. So that's the BlueRay thing. Plus, we were more kind of have like 1 foot in space and 1 foot, 1 foot in the hole, 1 foot in space, 1 foot getting deeper, one trying to get higher. And we lived more of in an era still where it was common to be very sociable. We could see it coming on the horizon. It wasn't going to be much, and you'll watch the change from everybody in the neighborhood having block parties together that my parents were used to from the 60s and 70s and even 50s. We watched watch that transformation die down of people because everybody got an Atari. Okay, we were the first ones on the block to have a VCR. Okay, so a bunch of people would come over to our house, we'd rent movies, have movie night, but then everybody got cheaper and everybody got a VCR. It had been the same thing with the Atari before that, when it was in the Pac-Man days, right? Donkey Kong, all that stuff, Cubert. And then everybody got one, right? And the same thing with the internet, By the time the internet came around, people were already not social like that yet. Not as much as they were. It had really, the VCR and the Atari and the Super Nintendo had really already taken its toll on that. And if that doesn't apply to you, what I'm saying, then, still a lot of people didn't, but most did by that time. For all kinds of reasons. So, we were the first to grow up in a non-traditional, or, very divorce-prone marriages as for parents. Kind of one of the last generations that en masse, I'd say my parents' generation, the World War II generation, was the last generation en masse, like absolutely no getting around it. Holiday dinners together, and everybody was there, like not just everybody'd have one, but your certain cousins just did their own thing, these people did their own thing. Where everybody got together and it was a must. It just is what you did, And it kind of started to die down with my parents' generation because they got divorced more and they were single and the economy started going to hell and just a lot of things added into this soup bowl that we have. And so that was the case. So all these things, everything plays a factor into it. And yet I know there's a lot of people out there that their life growing up resembled what your average person's did growing up in the 60s or the 50s or even into the 70s. But not as much. It's dwindled and people are less social. They're more social, but they're less social. As far as your neighbors go and things like that, because there's just it's not really a good or bad thing, it just is. But watching that all go down in front of our very eyes, that's pretty surreal like that. But, yet everything happens over time, but it's that quick, you kind of see it happening. I knew something was coming, but I didn't know what before the internet. I knew that there was something. Things had gotten real stale, and life was starting to look really kind of weird in about the early 90s. I was looking at it from an overall standpoint. There was the fashion and stuff, but it was like the feelings had been kind of sucked out of things a little bit. And I was like, man, what the hell is going to be next? Something, but I couldn't conceive of it. But then it was the internet, of course, is what I was thinking in my mind. Right? Yeah, so I could have given a shit less about computers before the internet. I figured maybe someday I'd have one to do my taxes on, to do my bank account spreadsheets on. Sure, okay, maybe grocery list. But even still, I just didn't think about it till the net came out, and then of course all of a sudden, lo and behold, Larry liked computers. It was a strange world. But BlueRays are very sensitive. They're very empathic too. They feel things. Totally. Like when they love somebody, it is forever. It doesn't matter whether it's a partner, a friend, a relative, kid. It does not matter. It's forever. And I know that people will say, well, isn't that with everybody? They still have some love for them. No, that love can never be shaken completely unless, something unspeakable. They murder one of your family members or something really just horrific like that. But any kind of a problem they would have with themselves or issues that they had with deficiencies as a person, now we look above that. Yeah, it gets us burned too, and yet at the same time, when we've had issues, we don't get the same, we've had to learn, we just because we're that way, don't expect other humans to treat you that way or give a fuck. Because one, they don't. Two, most of it is, it's not that they don't give a fuck, they're just not capable consciously of. It's like somebody who gets their kid's a dog for Christmas, and then, of course, a lot of people take them right to the pound right away, right? They do that, and it's fucked up, right? And then you realize, though, they just don't have the consciousness to understand it. They don't get it on that level. Everything's a lot more closed in and superficial for them. they don't see it that way, and it took me years to figure that out finally, is that, yeah, they just don't see it that way. It's not that they're these evil, people that just are jerks. Now, there are some that are. Those are very small. I'll get into those another. Those are dirty starseeds. It's another subject, but most of the time, most of the overwhelming percentage of the time, they just don't get it. And, and it's shitty, and it sucks. For us BlueRays, it's forever with us. Yeah. Oh yeah, man. I mean, granted, it takes something pretty atrocious. Whereas other people, they don't see shit that way. BlueRays, very shy when they're younger. Very shy. Not what you would call, outcasts at all. They get along with everybody fine enough. They don't necessarily fit into one area completely, but they get along fine with, probably better than they even realize with, people like them. Really, they do, but, they're really insecure, and then they can have bursts of extrovertedness when they get older, as they get more confident in themselves, and they can kind of go back and forth between the two, right? But, typically when they're younger, they're already, it may take them a little bit extra time to talk completely to, not much. I mean, on average, maybe an extra, few months than the typical norm of a child development, because they're kind of in telepathic mode still. They're really not completely here in complete physical body till they're about 6. Yeah, which describes other, like some indigos, some rainbows, some crystal children too. Crystal children, if you ever hear them, they're exactly like BlueRays. Basically, the only difference is crystal children are typically know exactly what they are and how they're different. The BlueRays, we know we are. We just can't put our fucking finger on it. It seems like a million miles away until we finally know. Crystal children all, they have figured out that they're different. They're a little more refined version in that way, but other than that, it's the same thing there. Same kind of scenario. That's it. The indigos after the BlueRays are just a little bit more of a cosmic consciousness. They're more, they can articulate better about things beyond Earth's realm. They can break things down a little bit easier, maybe know a thing or two more, not a lot, but versus, the street smarts of the BlueRays, and what the BlueRays had to do coming up. But the BlueRays were the pioneers for the indigos, basically, and then, that's how you pay it forward. Evolution. The children, my guides tell me the children that'll start to be born here in about the 1940s, too, it'll be amazing by the time they're in their late teens, early 20s. They will be pretty much able to speak completely telepathic. Yeah, it's going to happen that quickly. And look at it, since the kids that started coming in the 90s and so forth, and every 10 years you get a big giant leap. Yeah, it's amazing though. But that's what a BlueRay is. And typically, if you're from age, say right now, oh man, typically no younger than 45, 46 right now, and up into your stereotypically into your late 60s, but even into your mid 70s with some. Okay, yeah, but there are some that are younger than that are BlueRay Souls, and into a couple of them, so maybe one that, he'd be 35 now or whatever, and a couple that are like 40, couple girls that are 43 and 42, and I know they are in that first realm of indigos, but they are BlueRays. Yeah. So it just depends. It's an energy. There's holdovers and drop-offs, but yeah, BlueRays are starting to finally appreciate themselves for who they are. It's been a long road. And that's basically what a BlueRay is. You can get it a lot better. Hey man, I'll tell you what, I'll put it to you this way instead of my bullshit. Why don't you type in something like this? Go to YouTube and type in 10 characteristics that say I'm a BlueRay, or what, really, you'll get a lot clearer and a quicker answer than I would, and it'll get to the point, especially if you're younger than a BlueRay age. You'd be like, fuck, this dude's takes forever to get around to a point. I do, because I'm old. I don't know how to articulate it well. Believe me, do I wish I could? Yes, I wish I do. I really do. But, and that's one thing I kind of hesitate from doing, too, is the 10 character. They'll do the 10 signs that you're this, or the 7 signs that you're that. Man, that's pretty limiting to put it that, but I understand why they do it, though. It's from when I teach about dimensions to people, I only use 5 through the 13th dimension. They're endless, but for a scholastic point of view, I can see why they would say that, the 10 characteristics that you say you're this or that. I used to mock that all the time, but now I get it. I understand. You know what I mean? I've grown up a little bit too, so I know why. And it's usually dead on stuff, so I can't really complain. But if you want to know if you're an indigo, you're a Chris, any of that shit I just mentioned, hey, go type in the 10 signs that show that you are. Same thing with a star system. If you're wondering what star system you're from, and I've gotten that question, I won't say a million without exaggerating, I've had that question hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of times from newly awakened people over the years. How do they know what star system they're part of? It's a lot of things, what resonates with you, Don't overthink it, though. Don't draw one conclusion and have it just lead to another, because, you know what I mean? If you think you are, it's probably possible you are at least a little bit of, but it's possible you might be others as well. Now, if you straight up know you are,